One false signal is all it takes for an entire fleet to be taken out before it can even respond. 2:32 a.m. In the Strait of Hormuz, a red dot flashes onto the USS Tripoli's radar screen, then disappears. A few seconds later, it comes back, then splits into two, then three. In the next instant, all of them surge straight toward the ship, and yet the USS Tripoli, America's massive steel giant, keeps moving through the darkness as if nothing happened. At the same time, Iran makes a stunning announcement. They say they struck the Tripoli and forced it to pull back. Moments earlier, the radar display had been lit up with warning signals. Now, in the blink of an eye, it is completely blank. No interceptor launches, no wreckage, no visible sign of impact. So what was actually taken out? Tonight, the Strait of Hormuz is more than a narrow waterway. It is a pressure point for the world's energy supply. Cutting through these tense waters is the USS Tripoli, an America-class amphibious assault ship carrying 3,500 Marines and a squadron of F-35B Lightning IIs. Right now, it sits directly within range of Iran's coastal missile network. But the Tripoli is not operating alone. Arleigh Burke-class destroyers move alongside it, equipped with Spy 6 phased array radar and the Aegis combat system, standing watch around the clock. Below the surface, a Virginia-class nuclear-powered attack submarine moves in silence, guiding the formation, while MH-60R's Seahawk helicopters sweep the waters above, making sure no hidden threat slips through the fleet's perimeter. 2:35 a.m. The IRGC begins Operation True Promise 4. This is not a conventional strike. They are deploying electronic phantoms. Powerful jamming systems based in Bandar Abbas flood the airwaves, feeding false attack paths onto U.S. Aegis screens. The result is a nightmare for any modern fleet, severe data distortion that pushes automated defenses to the edge of a catastrophic mistake. In a waterway crowded with civilian oil tankers and allied vessels, one wrong move could send U.S. missiles toward the wrong target and turn a military standoff into a worldwide political crisis. Every flicker on the screen could be a trap. But there is another side to the deception. Each jamming burst also acts like a beacon, revealing the exact position of the enemy's radar network and giving the U.S. Navy the coordinates it needs to shut that network down. In this war of shadows, the side creating the illusion may not realize it is exposing itself, burying its own defense system under the weight of its own deception. 2:38 a.m. The IRGC launches a full-scale cyber offensive. From the jagged cliffs near Bandar Abbas, a swarm of pitch-black Shahed drones rises into the night. These are not just airborne munitions. They were radar-evading phantoms, built to disappear into background noise while hiding something far more serious. On the deck of the USS Tripoli, the night is ripped open by engine thunder as a squadron of F-35B Lightning IIs begins a short takeoff run. This is a desperate push to restore situational awareness. Using sensor fusion, the F-35Bs start rebuilding a picture of the battlefield, combining their own data with feeds from Arleigh Burke-class destroyers through the Link 16 network. The pilots are not depending on radar alone. They bring online the electro-optical targeting system, using thermal imaging to cut through the electronic haze and find what the screens cannot clearly explain. 2:41 a.m. The sky flashes as the first F-35B pilots fire a wave of AIM-120AM RAM missiles. Bright streaks tear across the darkness, locking onto incoming targets and turning the Iranian drones into scattered wreckage that drops into the sea. For a brief moment, inside Tripoli's command center, the pressure seems to ease. That calm does not last. Iranian electronic warfare teams had been waiting for exactly this moment, using that brief sense of confidence to trigger a far more advanced deception. 2:43 a.m. The Aegis screens are no longer simply flickering. They seem to be unraveling. Dozens of new targets appear without warning, each one moving with the exact flight behavior of real missiles. But then, with a chilling 3-second lag, the contacts jump, vanish, and reappear, making it nearly impossible to tell the difference between an actual incoming strike and corrupted data. The fleet is frozen by uncertainty. Automated defenses are now one step away from making a catastrophic mistake, with the risk of engaging the wrong vessel, including friendly ships inside the formation. F-35B pilots are forced to shift into independent radar mode, verifying every contact manually against destroyer data to stop the fleet from reacting to false signals. The outer layer of defense has been compromised. The American force has not been taken out, but it has been partially blinded, and that was only the setup for the real attack. 2:45 a.m. IRGC forces use that brief tactical hesitation to launch the main strike. This is no longer a test. It is a saturation assault designed to push the Aegis combat system to its limits. From heavily concealed mobile launchers along the Iranian coastline, a barrage of large Noor and Qadr anti-ship missiles is fired. These sea-skimming weapons travel at subsonic speed, around Mach 0.88, staying close to the wavetops to remain inside the radar's diffraction zone, where sea spray and the curve of the Earth make early detection extremely difficult for conventional defense systems. At the same time, long-range Pave cruise missiles launched from deep inside the country begin complex maneuvering routes, circling into the battlespace from unexpected directions and forcing U.S. defenses to track threats from every angle at once. The airspace over the Strait of Hormuz is no longer clear. It has turned into a closing trap. It became a solid wall of metal and incoming fire racing toward the U.S. Navy, threatening to overwhelm the entire formation. At 2:47 a.m., the Arleigh Burke-class destroyers answered with a violent burst of interceptor launches. With the Aegis system under extreme pressure, trying to sort through dozens of dangerous flight paths at once, SM-6 missiles shot out of the vertical launch cells in a desperate attempt to cut down the incoming wave. High above, two F-35Bs became essential forward data nodes. They were no longer just fighters. They were stealth eyes in the sky, helping direct the fleet's firepower from a distance. Inside the cockpits, target lock warnings sounded without pause as the pilots were pushed to their physical and mental limits, sending their remaining AIM-120 AMRAAM missiles into the oncoming barrage. But the scale of the Iranian assault was starting to turn the battlefield into pure confusion. 2:48 a.m. A highly advanced Iranian decoy drone, broadcasting the exact electronic signature of a high-value Pave missile, managed to create a brief but deeply dangerous opening. One F-35B pilot at the front of the formation, overwhelmed by the intensity of the electronic interference, was pulled into a false lock on a phantom target. He realized the trick only at the last instant, his thumb hovering over the trigger. It was just a wasted second, but in that moment the real missiles were still closing fast, moving at more than 900 feet per second. That brief distraction opened a critical gap. One Nor cruise missile, hidden by sea spray, low altitude, and the wider electronic chaos, slipped past the outer interception layers. It was now rushing in at top speed, less than 8 kilometers from the USS Tripoli. The ship's superstructure trembled as the failing CYWS, the 20mm Vulcan cannon, came alive. Its barrels spun with a harsh mechanical scream, pouring a non-stop stream of tungsten rounds into the darkness and building a final barrier of fire. The vibration could be felt across the ship, running through the decks and into the bones of every sailor on board. The Nor missile was finally broken apart just 1,000 yards from the deck, consumed in a massive fireball that washed the Tripoli in a deep orange glow. The fleet had survived the wave, but only barely. Ammunition was running low. Crews were exhausted. Every eye was fixed on the burning sky above them, unaware that a quieter and even more dangerous threat was already moving into position 200 meters below. 2:51 a.m. The aerial clash had only been a distraction. At a depth of 200 meters, the real strike force was already in place. Iran's Ghadir-class mini-submarines had been resting on the seabed for hours, completely still, their engines shut down so they could blend into the underwater terrain. To active sonar, they were almost impossible to separate from the ocean floor itself. In complete silence, the Ghadir crew released JASC-2 cruise missiles through their torpedo tubes. The sealed launch pods drifted upward through the water and only ignited their engines after breaking the surface. It was a point-blank ambush. The Aegis system had no advance cue before the subsonic projectiles came in from behind the formation, racing straight toward the Tripoli. 2:53 a.m. 5 nautical miles off the Tripoli's bow, the Virginia-class attack submarine caught the signal that changed everything. Its sonar picked up a sharp metallic sound, the distinct acoustic trace of a Ghadir's outer torpedo hatch opening. The submarine reacted instantly, turning into the attack line and launching an Mk-48A torpedo toward the source. Above, an MH-60R Seahawk shifted into emergency dipping sonar operations, dropping sonobuoys into the water to build an acoustic grid and lock onto the submarine's position on the seabed with deadly accuracy. The search was no longer quiet. It had become a race to stay alive. 2:55 a.m. on the Tripoli's bridge, the situation turns into chaos. Fresh tactical data shows that a smart minefield has been placed directly inside the ship's most likely turning path. The 45,000-ton vessel is suddenly caught in a deadly squeeze. JASC-2 missiles approaching from behind, and a belt of sensor-triggered explosives waiting ahead beneath the hull. Full stern is ordered at maximum power. The deck shudders as the ship's propellers whip the sea into a violent churn, fighting against the momentum of a vessel still moving at 20 knots. The Tripoli leans hard to port, its hull straining through the turn as it narrowly avoids the first activated mines. The underwater trap is now fully in motion, and the fleet is fighting for every meter of sea room. 2:57 a.m. Iran triggers a full-spectrum blackout. Coastal electronic warfare stations near Bandar Abbas, having waited for the Tripoli to push into the minefield, surged to maximum output. U.S. frequencies are flooded with intense jamming and sophisticated GPS deception. Navigation displays on the Tripoli spiral into confusion, suddenly showing the ship's position as miles inland inside hostile territory. The tactical picture collapses into noise. Right in the middle of an emergency maneuver, the fleet is effectively blinded, drifting toward the center of the minefield. Without reliable radar or GPS data, even the Phalanx CIWS mounts begin to lose targeting stability, unable to cleanly separate real threats from clutter and sea interference. The American warship is left struggling at the worst possible moment. The trap is closing. 2:59 a.m. But high above the darkness, the U.S. response is already in place. At 30,000 feet, two EA-18G Growlers that had moved into position shortly after the first drone wave now enter the fight. In passive mode, they had spent those critical minutes quietly recording and analyzing Iran's jamming bands, waiting for the exact moment to answer back. Then they switched to active mode. The pilots brought the next-generation jammer mid-band system online, turning the electronic fight into a precise digital takedown. A tightly focused beam of electromagnetic energy slammed into radar sites near Bandar Abbas, while AGM-88E-AAR-GM anti-radiation missiles followed in to eliminate the jamming sources. In less than 30 seconds, Iran's coastal network was effectively knocked offline. Their displays went dark, communications fell silent, and missile guidance capability disappeared almost instantly. 3:01 a.m. The digital haze cleared as suddenly as it had appeared. Tripoli recovered its inertial navigation lock and immediately revealed a minefield only yards from the bow. The Arleigh Burke-class destroyers shifted to high-resolution infrared tracking, isolating the mines from the movement of the waves. Above them, Seahawk helicopters used dedicated mine detection lasers to mark each target, cueing the ship's guns to fire armor-piercing rounds into the water. Every burst triggered a violent underwater blast as the mines were ripped apart. Overhead, now free from jamming, the F-35Bs moved in with full efficiency and quickly tracked down Iran's remaining electronic warfare drones. What had looked moments earlier like a certain breakthrough for Iran had now turned into a field of failed systems and broken coordination. 3:15 a.m. The USS Tripoli did not pull back. It held its ground like a steel fortress in the Strait of Hormuz. The fleet shifted into a clear show of force meant to send a message. F-35B. Lightning II fighters came down vertically onto the deck, while a formation of MV-22 Ospreys lifted off for patrol, moving out to track the remaining IRGC fast boats. Beneath the surface, the Virginia-class submarine, its mission complete, slipped quietly back into stealth and disappeared into the depths as though it had never been there at all. The battle revealed a hard truth. In modern combat, raw firepower alone does not decide the outcome. The side that can process information faster, endure electronic disruption, and adapt in real time holds the advantage. Iran had executed a highly coordinated multi-domain strike, building an electronic maze designed to freeze U.S. decision-making. For a few tense moments, that strategy came dangerously close to working. But the strength of the U.S. integrated sensor network allowed the fleet to break the pressure and regain control. For Iran, it was not a total collapse, but it was a serious warning sign. For the USS Tripoli, it was a reminder that in modern warfare, a force does not need to take a direct hit to still be pushed to the edge.